welcome to another exciting episode of Keeping It PC in the Kitchen. It's been a while since I have done one of these because it's been busy at the salon and I haven't really had time to get in the kitchen and play like I like to do. But it is the Monday before Thanksgiving as I'm filming this, and it is the only day I have to make my pie crust. So I am going to do a gluten-free pie crust for you. And prepare yourself because sometimes they work out and sometimes they don't. So this is how I do them for all of my gluten-free friends. We're going to start with 2.5 cups of gluten-free flour. Sometimes I use the Pillsbury. I have lately started using the King Arthur because it's costs a little bit more, but you get bigger bags of it and it lasts longer, so I like that. So we're going to have that, 2.5 cups of gluten-free flour, which is always self-rising. All-purpose. And you want to add your dry ingredients. So we need a teaspoon of salt. This is 1 teaspoon. Yeah, 1 teaspoon of salt right in there. And then you also need a teaspoon of sugar. But I like mine just a little bit sweeter than that when I am doing pie crusts that are fruit pies. I like my pie crust just a tiny bit sweeter, so I put actually a tablespoon in. And then when nobody's looking, I put a little bit more in. Okay, so there's that. And we want to mix up the dry ingredients first. Now, pardon my dirty pie pastry cutter because I've already made some dough that is in the refrigerator chilling. Okay, so I don't sift it. I know there was a time when everybody sifted, but I don't sift. So there's that. And the next thing we're going to do is put some ice cold butter that is cut into little cubes. Cut it into cubes before you start. You don't want a whole stick of butter in there. So I've sliced it into cubes. We're going to put a stick and a half of ice cold butter in there that's chopped up. And we're also going to put 1/4 cup of Crisco. Now, this is so handy. I love this watch. You just pop it out like that. And then you just slide it off. Clean as a whistle. Now, the reason why you want to use Crisco is because it just makes it taste better. I've tried it without Crisco because I was really like, bad fats, it's not good for you. It's only 1/4 cup. The rest of it's butter. Fat is fat. Okay, so you can use just butter. If you're just going to use butter, bump it up to 2 sticks. But if you want it really flaky and delicious, use a Crisco. All right, I'm going to cut this in once I put all my butter in. A lot of times I'll just put a 1/2 stick in, and then I'll put another 1/2 stick in, and then another 1/2 stick in. And we're going to use the pastry cutter, and we're just going to cut that through until it doesn't look like flour anymore. It looks like little tiny balls about the size of peas. All right, we're going to do that real fast, and then we'll be back. Okay, we're back. And before we continue, I want to show you what this is supposed to look like. It's supposed to look lumpy, like about the size of peas, like little curds. So I'm going to show you that real fast. Nope, not like that. There we go, like that. See how it's just lumpy? That is how it is supposed to look. Okay. Okay, I hope that's going to stay. The next thing we're going to do is to put some ice cold water in here. And what I do, I like to keep my ice in a little pitcher. This is the small batter bowl. I like to keep it in a little pitcher full of ice, and then I just keep a tablespoon handy. The recipe calls for 6 to 8 tablespoons of ice water. And I usually put 6 in, and I usually put about 3 more in, but it just depends. So first I put 6 in. So I've moved this up now, so it's 1 tablespoon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this is when it gets really fun because you get to get in there with your hands. And you just work that water through all of that. And the thing is, you don't want to work it so much that it's that you make all that butter melt. You don't want to do that. That's why the butter has to be cold, the water has to be cold, because when the pie crust cooks, that's when you want your butter to melt. That's what makes it good and juicy and flaky and delicious. Okay, now this is almost there. And in the past, my problem with pie crust has been that I never put enough liquid in it. And then when you go to roll it out, it just doesn't roll out at all. So I found through trial and error that you got to make sure this is just probably a little bit more liquid than you would think it should be. But you don't want it soupy, and you don't want it to be a batter. It just has to be moist enough that that it's pliable. So I'm going to add 2, 1, 2, and a third for good measure. Okay. Now I'm going to get in there and just really work that through so that we can really work with this dough. And if it's not moist enough, then you can always add a little bit more. But just go sparingly with the water. Now this recipe will make 2 pie shells or 1 pie shell and 1 top. Whether you want to be a full top or if you want a lattice top, however you want to do it, that's what you can make with this amount of crust. I've got 2 in the refrigerator, and this will make my second batch of pie crust today. I want to make 2 pumpkin pies and a cherry pie with a lattice top. I'm telling you right now, I either have just a little bit, not enough, or way too much. I don't know how that works, but it does. I think this still needs just a tiny bit more so I can get all this stuff down here in the bottom worked in. So I don't know. I don't think I need a full tablespoon, maybe a half a tablespoon. So we'll move that down. That's a handy little gadget right there. Just a little tiny bit. And I'm going to stand up so I can really work this through. There, that's how it's supposed to feel. It's still in one piece. It's not like it's batter, but it's pliable. Okay, now we're going to split this in 2. Just go in there with your hands and split. Don't have to be exact. And we're going to form this into, some people form them into a ball. I like to form them into more of a disc. And try to make it smooth. There's one. And then what you'll do is you'll wrap these up in a little bit of cellophane and put them in the refrigerator for about 20 minutes. Because you want to really get them good and cold before you start rolling them out. All right, we're going to wrap them up and we'll be right back. Hey, I'm back and I'm ready. I've got my refrigerated disc here, and so we're going to take it out. And the first thing I'm going to do is, again, with gluten-free flour, because you don't, after all that good work, you don't want to go and contaminate it with regular flour. So we're just going to sprinkle some on the mat and spread that around. And then we're going to take the pie dough. Let me see if I can move this so you can see a little bit better what I'm doing here. Nope, that didn't help. There. And we're going to put some of this on here, just sort of. All right. Now what you want to do, this is the part that always confused me when I would read directions or people would talk about it, because they would always say, no, you don't want to knead it too much because you'll make it tough. And then I was always afraid that I was doing too much and I wasn't actually doing it enough, so the pie crust kept falling apart. So once you get that sort of powdered up there, you're going to want to press it out, roll it over, press it one more time like this, and you just want to make sure that it is pliable. And this is. So that's really all the kneading I'm going to do to it. We're not making bread. We're just making pie crust. So I'm going to get it back into a little disc. And then I am going to put it on this, and I'm going to roll it out. And that's always the fun part, because if it's not moist enough, it'll just crack all over the place, and you don't want that. And I'm going to tell you, all of my gluten-free friends out there, if you have never made gluten-free pie crust before, I'm going to have to knead this just a little bit more because it's wanting to fall apart. If you have never made gluten-free pie crust, but you have made regular pie crust, this is a whole new experience, because gluten-free powder doesn't like to stick together like regular powder does. So you got to get a little creative sometimes. Okay, I think we're good now. All right. Sometimes I don't even need it at all. Sometimes I just know that it was good when I stuck it in there. All right, a little bit more flour on top. And don't forget to flour your rolling pin. Sometimes I use this little gadget right here, which is like an older version. Pampered Chef has one now that I think is not wooden. I think it's like that white silicone. I've had it forever. But more often than not, I use this. This, I believe, belonged to my husband's grandmother. And it is a true and faithful servant when it comes to rolling out my pie dough. All right, now on my pie pastry mat here, it's got little circles that tells you how big to make them. And I never can stay in those lines, so I just start rolling it. And the thing about rolling out your pie dough is that you want it nice and thin, but you don't want it so thin that it's going to crack when you pick it up. And I'm just going to say, for a gluten-free pie crust, you're going to want it a little bit thicker than what you normally do. So I like to roll it all out. By the time I married my husband, Mamu was well past pie baking. I know she was a good cook because she used to work in a bakery, but all right, that's as big as I'm going to make it. I'm going to take a knife and just kind of go around the edges. That was way better than I expected it to be. All right, so we're going to take all this extra off. Now here is the tricky part, because again, gluten-free flour does not like to stick together. You can't always, you know how you see people fold it and then fold it again. But if you do that with a gluten-free crust, a lot of times it'll just fall in two. It'll just split too. So, but we're going to try to lift it up a little bit. Let's go put this in. want to stick. I didn't put enough flour down. Darn it. Okay, we're going to have to play a little bit here. I'm going to roll that over like that. Hope that it doesn't split. Okay. Now, we're going to flip it right into this pie pan. There we go. Now we're going to open it up. Don't fall apart, don't fall apart, don't fall apart. Huh? Hey, yay, yay. All right, now, once you get it in there, the next part is called fluting. And you do that to the edges. Now, I'm not very good at fluting because I start out doing really well and then it just starts looking horrible. So my theory is my pie tastes so good, nobody cares what it looks like. So I wasn't quite centered in there, so there's a little more on that side than there is on this side. Oh, and the pie pans need to be buttered. Butter them generously, or this is not coming out of the pan. All right, now I'm going to try to flute. I'm going to try to flute a little bit. See, this is a little sparse over on that side, a little sparse on that side. So we're going to start there, and we're going to go around, and we're just going to kind of pinch and pinch, pinch to pinch to pinch. See, it just never looks right when I do it. You can also go in with a fork and kind of mash it. But this just gives the crust a little bit more uniformity. All right, well that part right there is pretty, you know, there's not a whole lot to flute. So, all right, the last thing you want to do is take your fork and just poke holes in the bottom. I know you're thinking, well, if you poke holes in the bottom, then the filling will leak through, but it really doesn't, and I don't know how that works, and I like to make sure that I get it some in that, just in that crease, because we're going to put this in the oven at about 425 degrees for about 15-20 minutes, because if you don't, and you put your filling in and then you cook it, then the pie crust gets doughy. You know, I don't know if you've ever had a pie crust that was doughy. It's just gross. So you want to kind of crisp it up. You don't want it like done, but you want it slightly toasted before you put your stuff in it. So that's what we're going to do, and then we'll be back with filling. Okay, I'm back, and we're getting ready to put the pumpkin into the pie shells. But first I wanted to tell you how I did the pumpkin, because if you're a gluten-free person like me, you have to read every label. So just get you some pumpkin that is gluten-free, and really, if it just says pumpkin, pure pumpkin, it's gluten-free. The only time you might have to worry about it is if it is pumpkin pie mix, then you're going to want to read every ingredient and make sure there's nothing in there, because sometimes there's fillers that, you know, they sneak in there. So this is pure pumpkin. I followed the directions on the can for pumpkin pie. The only thing I did different is this. Instead of using like the cinnamon and the ginger and the nutmeg, what I did was I used Cinnamon Plus by Pampered Chef, because it has all that in there. So I added up however many teaspoons or quarter teaspoons or whatever it was of those three, added those all up together, and then I just put that much of the Cinnamon Plus. Cinnamon Plus you can get in a bottle. I got this little bag of it when I was doing my subscription to where you get one recipe, like 3 recipe cards a week, a month. You get 3 a month, and this was one of them. This is usually a limited item that only comes up during the holidays. So if you want some Cinnamon Plus, now's the time to get it, because it is delicious. It makes cooking a whole lot easier, especially when you're doing something like pumpkin pie. Okay, so there's that. We've got our pies that have, you know, got nice and lightly, just barely, not so white. They're not really toasted, but just barely, you know, about 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes in there. And then, let me turn this off because it's getting ready to start. Okay, now we're going to pour our batter into the pie crust. And that's it. You just pour it in there. And then I've got another pie over here we're going to pour it into. And that's it. We're going to put it in the oven. We're going to cook it for about 10 minutes on a higher setting, like around 425, and then you drop it down to something. Let me just read the instructions here. 425, and then you bake it 425 for 15 minutes, and you reduce it to 350 and let it cook for another 40 to 50 minutes. And that's it. That's it. That's as easy as it is. People think it's so hard to cook gluten-free, and it's not. It's not at all. You just have to know your products, and you have to know how to work them. Now, you would think this is the end, but it's not, because I have one more thing to show you, so stick around. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back, and I promised you one more thing. A lot of people don't know this, but when I was a kid, I loved pumpkin pie. It was my very, very favorite, and then one Thanksgiving, I had a lot of pumpkin pie, and then I also had a stomach virus, and so it kind of ruined me on pumpkin pie, and for many, many years, I couldn't even stand the smell of it. I've passed that now, but it's not my favorite anymore. So I also, along with my pumpkin pies, make a fruit pie. And the fruit pie that I'm making is a cherry pie. And we're going to put a lattice top on it. So what I did was, when I got my other disc out, I cut my disc in half. I rolled out half of it. I put it in the pie shell. And then I put it in the oven, got it ready, for the filling. Put the filling in it, and then I got the other disc out of the refrigerator, the other half of the disc, rolled it out, and I have cut it into slices on my pastry mat. So we're going to start in the center of the pie, and we're going to lift up one of these and just lay it across the center. And I am going to move the camera so you can see what actually, I think I might move the pie so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, come on over here. So we've put that one in the center, and let me see if I can't, what can I do to help you see? Oh, not that. Okay, I think that's good enough. So then we're going to take another one and put it next to it and fold it. And then we're going to do that with the next one. And fold it. Now we're going to take one and go across the other way. This has to come up just a little bit. And we're going to pull this down. Oh, one of them broke. And we're going to take my next one, and we're going to put it here. We're going to lift this one up a little bit. Put that under it. Drop it down, and then there we go. And we're going to do one more this way, and this one's going to go under, over, under, and we're going to turn it around, and we're going to go over, under, over, and then we're just going to cut off the edges. Then we're going to take a little bit of egg and water and brush the top of it with that. Just brush it on there. And then we're going to sprinkle it with sugar. And before we put it in the oven, and I did this on my pumpkin pies too, I just didn't show you, you need one of these. Now, I think Pampered Chef may have come out with something like this, but I had already bought these a while back. They are your Crust Savers. You'll put this right around your crust. And when you bake it, this will protect those edges from getting too brown. About 10 minutes before you take it out, you can take that off so it'll finish browning up. But if you don't, those edges just get really almost burnt looking. So if you don't have any of these nice silicone crust savers, you can use aluminum foil just around the edges. But that's just so precarious, and these are just so much easier. So again, I think Pampered Chef might have come out with some, but I'm not sure. I know that I purchased these from Amazon. So there's that. You all have a great day. If there's anything you'd like me to show, comment below, and if I have it, I'll show it. You all have a great day, and happy Thanksgiving, happy Indigenous Day, and Christmas, and Kwanzaa, and Hanukkah, and all that stuff. The happy holidays all around. Bye-bye.